You know, we're here on what is supposed to be the last day of the 2016 legislative session, and we have had a frantic week, and that is part and parcel of the bad process that we have here. We kind of coast through January and February and the first half of March, and we get very little done, and then we cram like students for a test the night before, and we cram for the budget. And then we coast a little bit more, and it gets to be June, and we have to finish up the session, and we cram again. So it's a bad process. In fact, I read we passed more bills yesterday than we did in February and January combined, which shows you, the bad process. A couple of bad things that we passed in this frantic last week that are disappointing to me. One, we know about the $420 million a year our state taxpayers give to Hollywood filmmakers in a form of corporate welfare, where we give them 30% of their production costs off their tax liability, but it's a refundable tax credit. So if that 30% rebate exceeds their tax liability, we actually end up cutting Hollywood filmmakers a check. And what we did yesterday in both the Senate and the Assembly was we decided to expand that from 30% of production costs to 40% of production costs. So whereas in the budget, the middle class got a tax cut of $100, which starts in 2 years, but Hollywood, for the last 3 or 4 years, has been getting $420 million. So, since I got here, we're talking about $1.2 billion or $1.6 billion in 4 budgets to Hollywood. But in 2 years, middle-class taxpayers are going to get $100 off. Shows you the injustice of it. In 2013, the governor's own tax panel said that this tax credit is a dog. It's not creating enough jobs. It should be scaled back, and yet we just expanded it yesterday. That was bad news. A bill that didn't come up, that should have come up, is a bill we've been working on for years. In 2012, before I was elected, there was a horrible accident in the city of Poughkeepsie, the county seat of my county. A mother and father were killed when a parole violator was being chased, ran a red light, killed this lovely young couple, left their kids orphaned in the back seat. And because of a quirk in the penal law, if a single act kills multiple people, the perpetrator of that act can only be sentenced to concurrent sentences. So the maximum was manslaughter. The maximum sentence is 15 years. But because of our flawed law, this person would only have to serve time for each of the 2 people he killed concurrently. So it would be a maximum of 15 years. We've been working for the whole 3.5 years I've been here to change that and give judges the option to say, if a single act kills multiple people, you can be sentenced for each of those victims. In the case of manslaughter, a maximum of 15 years per victim, back to back. That is a common sense approach. The families of these victims have been working with us. The judge in this case, who's now retired, has been working with us to pass this legislation. And the majority in the Assembly told us, well, it's a double jeopardy violation. Well, guess what? We did the research. There's not only a U.S. Supreme Court case that says it's not a double jeopardy violation, there's a New York State Court of Appeals case that says it's not a double jeopardy violation for someone to be punished for taking 2 lives when a single act causes that. So I'm disappointed that did not come to pass, but I'm not giving up. I'm still working with the families. It's a bipartisan bill. Frank Scartatos, the Democrat, is the lead sponsor in this. It's already passed the Senate 2 or 3 times. In fact, a Republican senator has passed this, and a Democrat Senate sponsor has passed this. So it's a bipartisan bill. We need to get it through this House here, and I'm going to come back in January, and that will continue to be one of my top priorities. But there's some good news. There's some good news. We are, I believe, unless something terrible happens, going to finally pass a constitutional amendment to put us on a track to taking away pensions from felonious public officials. And we believe the constitutional amendment details that should pass tonight, needs to pass tonight. Another legislature needs to pass it, and then the people need to approve it, and there's no doubt that the people will approve this. Huge percentages of New Yorkers want to take away the state-funded pensions of felonious lawmakers and felonious public officials. It's been a long time coming, but it's finally going to come, I believe, tonight, and I think that is a very positive ending to this session today. So that is one of the big positives. If we get that done, like Kenny Rogers said, you never count your money while you're sitting at the table. Well, we're not counting our constitutional amendment while we're sitting at the table. I want to get that thing voted. I want to get it through both houses, and when we do that, then we will then we will finally celebrate. Some other positives in the last few days, but those are the big things that have gone on.